What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the iGaming experience. I'm your host, Sam Bhatti, and coming to you from the Zebra Studios here in stunning Podgorica, Montenegro, ready to get into another episode. Now, this episode of the iGaming experience is along the same lines of previous episodes, but this is targeted a little bit more at operators, founders, let's say dreamers even, right? Whether you're trying to break into the iGaming world or just scale a brand that's already cooking, today we're going to dive into a topic that is not the flashiest part of the industry, but arguably the most important. Okay, and that's managed services, which, yes, I know, does not sound very sexy when you put it out there as just managed services. But stick with me. I promise you're going to walk away with a whole new appreciation for how your iGaming business can run smoother, smarter, faster, and most importantly, it's going to save you and your squad, your crew, your team from burning out, right? We're going to show you how to select the services that you are going to need to really be able to focus on what you're good at. Okay, and this is coming from both sides. So whether you're a service provider or whether you're an operator, you should get some good value out of this when it comes to managed services. All right, so let's start this off with an analogy. If you've been listening to previous episodes, you know I love analogies. So let me drop another one on you. Have you ever thought about opening a restaurant? You yourself, think about it. A coffee shop, a restaurant, some cool place to hang out, serves food, and it's a trendy place in town or just a cool spot for you and your friends. Most people have. I know I have. And so let's slow it down. You've got this killer idea, right? You've got a beautiful space. Let's say you've even got access to a really cool chef, some great food. You know, your branding is tight. You've got a domain and Instagram account and all that. But then you realize you've also got all these other issues that come with a restaurant. You got health inspections, payroll, cleaning the grease out the traps, figuring out your point of sale system, deals with food suppliers, hiring staff, training staff, covering when people call in sick, drunk customers, labor laws, the list goes on and on. At some point, you're going to be like, yo, I did not sign up for this. I just wanted to build something cool, make people happy, share with them my dream. Now, take all of that and swap out restaurant with online casino and sportsbook, and you're in basically the same situation, right? You might have the brand, you might have the platform, front end, marketing skills, but you've also got licensing to handle. You've also got regulatory updates to track. You've got customer support. You've got risk and fraud detection. You've got payment processors, KYC, game provider integrations, compliance audits, responsible gaming, anti-money laundering, right? So you've got all this, and you still also need to focus on your players and your product. So that is where a lot of newer operators or people to this industry will hit a wall. And that is exactly where managed services come in, right? All those things that I just listed right there can be handled by a team with experience and take all of those headaches off your plate, right? So let me just break it down in fairly plain language, okay? So managed services in iGaming are basically the operational and backend pieces that need to run like clockwork, really, for your brand to be successful. But here's the key thing. They don't necessarily need to be built or managed by you directly. So instead of building your own compliance department, you partner with a team that already knows how to get you licensed in the markets that you want, right? Instead of hiring your own 24/7 customer support team in 6 to 10 languages, you tap into a crew that already exists, already knows the systems, right? So this is starting to make sense. I think you're going to sense a bit of a pattern here. Same goes for payment processing, fraud and risk monitoring, game content management, campaign automation, CRM, bonuses, VIP segmentation, like just all of it. It's like when you bring on a squad to handle your managed services that know what they're doing, it's like having an elite operations team already trained in place, right? They're ready to just crush your brand, push it out there, while you just focus on the bigger picture, right? You do the things that you're good at, and the engine is going to keep running, right? So you're not losing any control here, right? So you can still do your thing, you can still interact. You're just gaining some bandwidth. You're getting some more space to focus on the things that you're good at doing. And in fact, the things I'm saying are not just unique to iGaming. Anyone will say this. If you got into started a business based off of one of your passions, you realize very quickly that part of running a business is running a business, and that might not be your passion. Okay. And in fact, that's the trap that a lot of entrepreneurs fall into, not just in iGaming. It's trying to do everything yourself. Okay. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how smart your team is. It doesn't matter if this is your first, second, 10th brand. You're going to hit some type of operational bottleneck if you're trying to handle everything yourself. You're going to hit delays getting licensed. You're going to fail an audit because you didn't catch a regulation change. Your support queue is going to pile up while your customers are screaming that they can't get any action taken. And it's not just about problems either. It's also a major opportunity cost here if you're focusing all your effort on things that you're not necessarily the strongest at, right? You could be out there driving traffic, running campaigns, building community, experimenting with new features, improving the product. But instead, you're stuck resolving a payment dispute at 3 a.m. with a provider across the world. Right? So managed services, they give you back your time, your focus, they give you back your strategic edge, right? Whatever brought you into the game, and unless it's already managed services, I imagine your edge is something else, and this will bring it back, right? It'll help you launch faster and just really focus on the things that you need to grow your brand rather than just the basics of keeping it alive, right? And I guess if you're already in this industry for a little bit, you might think to yourself, well, managed services are really just for newbies, for new companies or people that don't know what they're doing, right? But that just really can't be further from the truth, really. I've seen really big, well-funded brands bring in managed service partners through their growth phase, not just because they didn't have resources, but because they didn't want to waste time setting all this up, basically reinventing the wheel, right? There's no need if it's already out there, right? You're already live in one market, and now maybe you want to launch in another region. Maybe it's Latin America, maybe Southeast Asia, right? Suddenly you've got new languages and new regulations, you got new payment systems, different fraud risks, all different types of expectations around players, bonuses, and what your client base is expecting. So are you really going to build a whole new team from scratch just to tackle that? No, of course not. That would be silly, right? You would work with a group that's already done it a dozen times, that already knows what red flag to look out for, and that can have you live and up and running and crushing it in a fraction of the time. Right? Need I say more? I mean, clearly that's the move. So while that's a clear move and it makes perfect sense, let's talk about a few things that can go wrong or that people might get wrong when it comes to managed services, or at least the perception of it. First, we're not just outsourcing here. Okay. This isn't about shipping stuff off to some faceless team. It's about integrating with experts that become part of your operation. Right? You don't lose touch with your business, you scale it. And second, related, is that you're not losing any control. You're still the decision maker. You set the brand voice, the rules, the strategy. A good managed service partner simply executes that vision with precision, but simply executing is all they need to do. And third, it's not just for when things go wrong. In fact, the best time to have managed services is before things go wrong, right? Before you start drowning, you put on the life jacket, right? And that's what you're going to get with a managed services operation, is all these headaches that I've seen for a ton of operators that leaves them scrambling, and they're freaking out and figuring out, what do I do here? This is like a preemptive step to take care of yourself, right? So if you're listening to this and you're an operator and you're thinking, geez, okay, Sam, that sounds great. But how do I know who's good at this? Who do I go to? So here's what I would say to that. It's a fairly general piece of advice here, but I think this holds true in most cases, is when you're looking for managed services providers, you want to find a team that thinks like an operator, okay? Not just a service provider, but someone that understands operating a brand, right? You want people that know what's at stake here, right? The people that understand player churn, regulatory risk, and what happens if your payments are delayed. All these little things that can add up and really make or break your brand, right? So you want to find a team that's transparent, flexible, right? They got to have tech skills. And most importantly here, I think this is a really key point. You don't want people that just follow the rules. You want creative professionals, people who have been in the trenches and are willing to work within the rules, within the law, and the regulatory framework to come up with something unique and interesting. So just be aware that there are varying levels of experience, varying levels of skill out there with people providing managed services, and just look for a team that aligns with the way that you're thinking. And when you ask them questions about your brand, that they come back with answers that would be similar to what your team would give. All right, so look, I've been in this game for a while now, and I've seen a few times what happens when people try to DIY their way through managed services. They set up their own licensing and payments and customer support and compliance. And, sometimes it works. But most of the time, in fact, all the times that I've seen it, it does slow them down. They might figure it out down the road, but there might have been a more optimal route to get there. Right? So on the other side, I've seen how much smoother and smarter things run with the right managed services in place, like faster launches, happier players and clients and customers, less fires to put out, and leaving you with actual energy to do things that are going to benefit your business. Right. And in fact, at Zebra Solutions, that's exactly the kind of work that's done in this very office behind the scenes, right? Helping brands get live, stay compliant, scale with confidence. But I mean, listen, this episode isn't about pitching us. And I guess in a sense, every episode is, but really this is about adding value and just making you understand the space better. But, that being said, if you want to learn more, if you're curious about the Zebra Solutions managed services or how we can help your brand, just reach out, shoot us an email, hello@zebrasolutions.me, or just check out our website, zebrasolutions.me. No pressure, just good conversations. We're a cool crew here, or at least we think we are. And so, holler at us and we'll be happy to just discuss your needs and try to steer you in the right direction. Right. But back to, zooming out back to, the industry as a whole, I just want to underscore how critical having proper managed services and operations can be for making your life just so much easier, so much less pain when it comes to dealing with running an online sports booking casino. It's already difficult. There's a lot of competition out there, and more coming every day. So any edge that you can have, any USP, which for the new people is a unique selling proposition, basically one of the things that makes you special compared to your competitors, you really have to exploit. You really, really need to squeeze that out, unless you're one of these, stakes and you've got some insane marketing budget and, you're willing to wait a few years to get a big ROI. Fine. But for the rest of us, let's try and be optimal. Let's try and be smart and just not leave anything on the table. Right? If you're trying to do it all yourself, as I said before, not to say that you can't, you probably can at some point, but it's going to slow you down. There's going to be some bumps along the way. And that's about it. I don't think I need to go on much further than that as far as the overall aspects of managed services. I will get into, in later episodes, into each one of these services. In fact, I need to break it down really for you so that you can learn more about KYC and customer support and risk management. In fact, I am in a previous episode, I think it was 2 or 3, with Stefanos Karakidis from BetBee, we got a little bit into the risk management and trading side of things. So we'll probably bring him back on to break that down a little bit more. But I think for each one of these topics, I'm gonna bring on someone that this is their day-to-day right now, a real specialist in each managed service, so we can really break it down and continue to educate you all, the audience, and the rest of the industry, and educate myself a little bit along the way. All right, so that's it for this episode of the iGaming Experience. If you found this valuable, please send it to someone who's building a platform or thinking about launching. If you don't mind, leave a review. If you got 30 seconds, it helps the podcast reach more people who want to build better and launch into the iGaming industry. So, please share, like, subscribe, all that stuff. And that's it. I'm Sam Bhatti, coming to you from the Zebra Studios in Podgorica, Montenegro, and looking forward to talking with you next episode. Cheers.